An alien fleet was stranded. Then humanity arrived to help. But the moment of truth came when Korval warships descended upon them all. 3 Zelno ships sacrificed themselves, creating a quantum cascade that momentarily disabled the Korval fleet's defenses. In that precious window, human-Zelno hybrid technology cut through enemy ships while the UHS Aegis made the ultimate sacrifice, ramming the Korval flagship to secure their survival. The void between stars had never felt so cold. Captain Jarek Thrill stood on the command bridge of the Zelno flagship, his crystalline eyes reflecting the dim emergency lights that barely illuminated the massive chamber. Outside the viewport, 57 other vessels drifted in perfect, hopeless formation, a fleet of refugees carrying the last 1.3 million survivors of a once thriving civilization. "Life support status?" Jarek asked, his voice steady despite knowing the answer. First Officer Lissari approached, her translucent skin showing the faint blue pulse of blood vessels beneath. 3 weeks of oxygen reserves, if we maintain current conservation protocols. Food synthesis systems are failing across all vessels. The children, she hesitated. The children on the Astrian are showing signs of advanced malnutrition. Our medical systems cannot properly synthesize the nutrition compounds their developing bodies need. Jarek nodded silently. The Astrian, their largest medical vessel, housed nearly 20,000 Zelno children, the future of their species. A future that grew dimmer with each passing hour, as the fleet drifted helplessly through the outskirts of the Melanthia star system. Their quantum drives simultaneously disabled by what could only have been a coordinated attack. "And the engines?" he asked, though he'd requested this report a dozen times in the past week. "No change. The quantum crystal matrices show the same disruption patterns across all ships. The sabotage was thorough." Lissari's voice hardened. "The Korval signature is unmistakable. The Korval Empire, a militaristic species that had been systematically hunting the Zelno for generations, viewing their peaceful, crystalline-based technology as both primitive and threatening. The Zelno fleet had barely escaped their home system before the quantum drives had suddenly failed, leaving them stranded in this resource-poor system, 27,000 light-years from Earth. "Captain," came another voice, "the Council is divided on whether to broadcast a general distress signal." Science Minister Valen, one of the few remaining Zelno government officials, approached with a data crystal. "Half believe we should preserve power and remain silent. The other half argue that taking the risk of being discovered by the Korval is preferable to certain death by starvation." Jarek took the crystal, but didn't activate it. He already knew the arguments. Silence meant slow death. A signal might bring salvation, or swift destruction if the Korval intercepted it first. "Broadcast on all available frequencies," Jarek decided, silencing the immediate protests with a raised hand. "Not just emergency bands. Use the old stellar communication arrays. Cast wide. If there are any friendly species in this system, any ears listening to the void, we must try." As the communications officers hurried to comply, Jarek turned back to the viewport. Beyond their fleet lay the Melanthia star system, 3 inhospitable planets, and a dense asteroid belt rich in metals. No established colonies, no outposts, nothing to indicate civilization. Just endless, indifferent space that would become their tomb if help didn't arrive. "Captain," Lissari whispered, dropping formality for a moment, "do you truly believe anyone will hear us?" Jarek placed a hand on the transparent material of the viewport, feeling the bitter cold of space seeping through. "I believe," he said carefully, "that even in this vast emptiness, hope is the last duty of leadership." 6 days later, and 12 billion kilometers away, Lieutenant Marisol Vega frowned at her communications console aboard the UHS Endeavour, a mid-sized human survey vessel. "Commander Miles," she called, "I'm picking up an unusual signal pattern originating from the outer rim of the Melanthia system." Commander Alara Miles looked up from her station. The Endeavour had been dispatched to survey the Melanthia asteroid belt for potential mining operations, a routine mission for the Human Federation's Interstellar Survey Corps. At 38, Alara had led a dozen such expeditions, but something in Marisol's tone caught her attention. "Define unusual, Lieutenant." "The signal doesn't match any Federation protocols. It's binary-based, but with a repeating pattern that suggests a distress code." Marisol adjusted her instruments. "Origin appears to be deep in the system's outer belt, well away from any established lanes or outposts." Captain Sark, the vessel's tactical officer, looked up from his console. "Commander, our primary directive is resource mapping. Diverting to investigate an anomalous signal would delay our mineral survey by at least 7 days." Alara considered this. Resource mapping was indeed their mission, but Interstellar Core regulations were clear about distress signals. "Could it be automated equipment? Perhaps old mining drones?" she asked. Marisol shook her head. "The pattern is too complex, and it's being actively modulated. Whatever's sending it is intelligent and operational." Alara made her decision. "Plot an intercept course, Lieutenant. If someone needs help out there, we can't ignore them." "Commander," Sark protested, "the economic impact is secondary to potential lives at risk." Alara finished firmly. "Adjust our course, full thrust," as the Endeavour's engines roared to life, propelling the ship deeper into the Melanthia system. Alara couldn't shake the feeling that they were heading towards something momentous. In 15 years of space exploration, she'd never encountered another intelligent species. Few humans had, despite centuries of searching the stars. The vastness of space kept civilizations isolated, rarely crossing paths except through deliberate contact. 2 days later, the Endeavour's long-range sensors detected something that caused the entire bridge crew to fall silent. "Multiple massive objects," reported Kystrom, the sensor operator. 58 vessels. Commander, biggest one measures nearly 3 kilometers in length." "Corval warships?" Sark asked tensely, referring to the aggressive species known to patrol this sector of space. "Negative. Configuration doesn't match any known Corval designs. No active propulsion signatures detected. They appear to be drifting." Alara leaned forward. "Life signs?" Kai adjusted his instruments, his expression changing from concentration to astonishment. "Confirmed. Approximately 1.3 million biological signatures. Commander, they're alive, but their power systems are failing. At current degradation rates, they'll lose life support within weeks." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Over 1 million souls, stranded in space, slowly dying. "Any response to our hails?" Alara asked Marisol. "Nothing directed. But I'm receiving an automated message from one of the vessels. Appears to be a medical ship based on configuration. Translation algorithms are working on it now." Moments later, 3 simple words appeared on the main screen. "We sick. Help. Urgent." Alara called an emergency meeting of the Endeavour's senior staff. Chief Engineer Raj Patel, Lieutenant Marisol, Captain Sark, and Science Officer Ariadne gathered in the conference room as sensor data streamed across the displays. "The vessels show signs of recent plasma damage," Sark pointed out. "Those burn patterns are consistent with Corval weapons fire." "And their engines?" Alara asked Raj. The engineer studied the scans. "Complete quantum drive failure across all vessels. It's as if they all suffered the same catastrophic malfunction simultaneously." "That's not possible without deliberate sabotage," Ariadne noted. "The statistical probability of simultaneous failure across 58 independent systems is effectively 0. Marisol spoke next. "Translation algorithms have identified their language structure. They call themselves the Zelno. Preliminary cultural analysis suggests a highly advanced, non-aggressive civilization with crystal-based technology. And the Corval consider this region their territory," Sark added grimly. "This could be a trap. The Corval have been known to use bait tactics." Alara studied the holographic display of the stranded fleet. If this is a trap, it's an elaborate one involving over 1 million lives. Our scans confirm they're in genuine distress. What do you propose, Commander? Ariadne asked. Alara's expression was resolute. We render assistance. Humanity has always prided itself on extending a hand to those in need. I won't be the first commander to ignore a cry for help, simply because it comes from unfamiliar voices. The first contact team approached the Zelno flagship in a small shuttle. Alara had decided to lead personally, accompanied by Ariadne, Raj, and a small medical team. As they drew closer, the true scale of the Zelno vessels became apparent. Massive crystalline structures that might have been beautiful if not for the scorch marks and damage visible across their hulls. Their architecture is remarkable, Ariadne whispered, as they approached a docking port that had reconfigured itself to accommodate their shuttle. The entire hull appears to be a form of grown crystal, not constructed. The airlock cycled, and they stepped into the Zelno ship. The interior was illuminated by soft blue light, emanating from the walls themselves. Despite the alien design, the atmosphere was surprisingly compatible with human physiology. The shuttle's sensors had confirmed this before they docked. A delegation of Zelno awaited them. Tall, slender beings with translucent skin that revealed faint blue circulatory systems beneath. Their eyes were faceted like gemstones, reflecting light in mesmerizing patterns. One stepped forward. I am Captain Jarek Thrill, he said. The words translated through the communication devices Marisol had programmed. You have answered our call when we had lost hope. For this, the Zelno are eternally grateful. Alara introduced herself and her team. We've brought medical supplies and engineers to assess your situation. Tell us how we can help. Jarek led them through corridors, where Zelno civilians watched them pass, with a mixture of fear and hope. Our people are refugees, he explained. Our home system was overrun by the Corval Empire. We managed to evacuate 1.3 million of our people. Scientists, artists, engineers, and children, before escape became impossible. But your quantum drives failed, Raj noted. Simultaneously, across all vessels. Jarek's crystalline eyes darkened. We believe the Corval embedded quantum delay devices in our drive systems before we fled. A final cruelty to ensure we would not escape them completely. They reached a vast chamber that Jarek identified as their medical center. Rows of beds held Zelno children, their translucent skin showing alarming signs of malnutrition. Medical staff moved between them, but their expressions were grim. Our synthesizers cannot produce the proper nutritional compounds, Jarek explained. Our children are slowly starving, and without functioning quantum drives, we cannot reach a suitable world where we might establish a new home. Alara and her team exchanged glances. The situation was dire, far worse than they had anticipated. Captain Thrill, Alara said firmly. The Endeavor is equipped with advanced medical facilities and engineering capabilities. We'll establish a support station immediately and begin transferring critical cases to our ship. Chief Engineer Raj will lead a team to examine your quantum drives. And if they cannot be repaired? Lissari asked, speaking for the first time. The first officer had been watching the humans warily throughout their tour. Then we'll find another solution, Alara promised. Humanity doesn't abandon those in need, regardless of their origin. As they returned to their shuttle, Raj pulled Alara aside. Commander, repairing their quantum drives won't be simple. Their crystal-based technology is fundamentally different from ours. It could take weeks to understand, let alone fix. Then we'd better get started, Alara replied. And contact Federation headquarters. We're going to need more ships. Within 48 hours, the human presence around the stranded Zelno fleet had transformed from a single survey vessel to a small armada of support ships. Admiral Sofia Reyes, commander of the Federation Emergency Response Fleet, had dispatched 12 additional vessels after receiving Alara's report. Relay Station Alpha had been established on a small asteroid, approximately 800,000 kilometers from the Zelno fleet. From this base, human medical teams shuttled to and from the Zelno vessels, while engineering crews worked around the clock to understand and repair the alien quantum drives. In the makeshift command center of the station, Alara met with Admiral Reyes, who had arrived to oversee the operation personally. "The situation is complex," Alara reported. Chief Engineer Raj believes the quantum disruption was caused by devices hidden within the crystal lattice of their drive systems. Removing them without destroying the entire drive requires precision we're still developing. "And the humanitarian situation?" Reyes asked. "Critical. Our medical teams are working with Zelno physicians to develop nutrition formulas compatible with their physiology. We've had some success. Childhood mortality rates have decreased by 60% in the past 36 hours. But it's a stopgap measure at best." The Admiral studied the holographic display showing the positions of the human and Zelno vessels. "Commander, I've received concerning intelligence from our long-range patrols. Corval fleet movements suggest they're aware of the Zelno's location. If they're coming to finish what they started." She didn't need to complete the thought. The Human Federation, while technologically advanced, had deliberately avoided military confrontation with the Corval Empire. Their aggressive expansion had been observed with caution, but never directly challenged. "How long do we have?" Alara asked. 36 hours, maybe less." Alara's expression hardened. "Then we need to accelerate our efforts. We can't evacuate 1.3 million Zelno in that time frame. But perhaps we can get a few of their ships operational enough to jump to safety." "I've authorized Plan Aurora," Reyes said quietly. "The escort vessels will create a defensive perimeter. Our cover story is that we're conducting a humanitarian mission, which is true, but we'll be prepared if the Corval arrive with hostile intent. And if they demand we withdraw?" The Admiral's eyes were steely. "Then we will remind them that the Human Federation does not abandon those under its protection, no matter who they may be." On the Zelno flagship, Jarek watched as human engineers worked alongside his people, their disparate technologies slowly finding common ground. Chief Engineer Raj had proven to be a brilliant problem solver, quickly grasping the fundamentals of crystal lattice quantum mechanics despite its difference from human fusion-based systems. "Your engineer works with unusual dedication," Lissari commented, standing beside Jarek. "All of them do." "They understand what's at stake," Jarek replied. "The lives of our children." Lissari's expression remained skeptical. "No species extends such effort without expecting something in return. What do you think they want from us?" "Perhaps not all species think as the Corval do," Jarek suggested gently. "Perhaps some help, simply because they can—" Their conversation was interrupted as Raj approached, his expression excited, despite obvious exhaustion. "Captain Thrill, we've had a breakthrough," he announced. "We've identified how the quantum delay devices are integrated into your crystal matrices. With this understanding, we can begin disconnecting them from your drive systems." "How long until we have operational drives?" Jarek asked. Raj's enthusiasm dimmed slightly. "Full restoration will take weeks, but we believe we can get 3 of your vessels partially operational within 24 hours, enough for short-range quantum jumps if necessary." "Prioritize the Astrion," Jarek instructed immediately. "The children must be saved first." As Raj hurried back to his work, Lissari turned to Jarek. "You trust them completely now?" "I trust their actions, which have shown only compassion and aid," Jarek replied. "And in our position, First Officer, trust may be the only resource we have left in abundance." In another section of the Zelno flagship, Dr. Liang Wei worked alongside Zelno medical specialists, analyzing the biological samples they'd provided. As the Federation's leading xenobiologist, she had been among the first specialists Admiral Reyes had summoned. "The fundamental structure of their cells is remarkably similar to ours," she explained to her human and Zelno colleagues. But their metabolic processes rely on crystal-based enzyme reactions rather than our carbon-based ones. She displayed a holographic model of a Zelno child's cellular structure. We've developed a nutrient solution based on pure hydrostin compounds and modified human enzymes. Initial trials show an 85% restoration rate in cellular function. The lead Zelno physician, a specialist named Nareth, studied the formula. This could save our children. How quickly can it be synthesized? Production is already underway on the medical ships, Liang assured her. The first batches will be ready for distribution within hours. As the meeting concluded, Nareth approached Liang privately. Doctor, I must ask, why are your people doing this? The resources you're expending on our behalf must be substantial. Liang smiled gently. There was a time in our history when different human groups asked the same question of each other. We learned, eventually, that compassion isn't a resource to be rationed, but a strength to be cultivated. Your children deserve to live, Dr. Nareth. No other justification is needed. The warning came just as the first Zelno vessels were beginning to show signs of partial quantum drive functionality. Lieutenant Marisol's voice crackled over the communication system with unmistakable urgency. Commander Miles, long-range sensors have detected a Corval battle group approaching the Melanthia system. 12 capital ships, multiple support vessels. Their current trajectory will bring them here in less than 36 hours. Alara immediately ordered all personnel to high alert. On Relay Station Alpha, Admiral Reyes convened an emergency council with the senior human officers and Captain Jarek. Their force substantially outnumbers ours, Sark reported grimly. Even with our escort vessels, we cannot hope to prevail in direct confrontation. Could we accelerate the repairs? Reyes asked Raj. The engineer shook his head. We've pushed the integration process as far as we safely can. 3 Zelno vessels will have limited jump capability within 12 hours, but the remainder will take days at minimum. What about evacuation? Alara suggested. We could begin transferring Zelno civilians to our vessels. The numbers make that impossible, Jarek said quietly. Even if you emptied every human ship, you could save perhaps 20,000 of my people. Who would you choose to live, Commander? And who would you condemn? The room fell silent as the impossible mathematics of the situation sank in. We have another option, Reyes finally said. Diplomatic engagement. Sark scoffed. The Corval don't negotiate, they conquer. Nevertheless, we will attempt communication, Reyes insisted. The Human Federation is not officially at war with the Corval Empire. We can legitimately claim to be conducting a humanitarian mission, which might give them pause. And if it doesn't? Jarek asked. Admiral Reyes's expression hardened. Then we stand with you, Captain Thrill. We did not come this far to abandon you now. After the council dispersed, Alara found Jarek standing alone on an observation deck, watching as human shuttles moved between the vessels of his fleet. Your admiral is committing your people to a battle you cannot win, he said without turning. Why? Alara moved to stand beside him. Because some principles are worth fighting for, even against impossible odds. The belief that all sentient life deserves protection is fundamental to who we are. The Corval will not understand such reasoning. Perhaps not, Alara acknowledged. But understanding isn't a prerequisite for doing what's right. Jarek turned to face her, his crystalline eyes reflecting the stars. In our culture, we have a concept called resonant harmony, when different crystals vibrate in perfect alignment, creating something stronger than any could achieve alone. I believe our peoples have found such harmony in this crisis. Then let's hope it's enough to face what's coming, Alara replied. The Corval fleet arrived with brutal efficiency, dropping out of quantum space at the edge of the Melanthia system. Their vessels were massive constructs of dark metal, angular and predatory in design, the embodiment of their martial culture. Lieutenant Kai, leading a reconnaissance flight near the system's edge, was the first to spot them. "Multiple Corval capital ships detected," he reported back to Relay Station Alpha. "Configuration suggests a standard conquest formation. They're moving into the system at maximum sublight velocity." Admiral Reyes immediately opened a communication channel. "Attention Corval vessels. This is Admiral Sophia Reyes of the Human Federation. We are conducting a humanitarian mission in this system. We request peaceful passage and offer diplomatic communication." For several tense minutes, there was no response. Then a harsh voice replied, "Human vessels. This is War Master Helrax of the Corval Empire. You are harboring fugitives claimed by the Empire. Withdraw your forces immediately or be considered hostile combatants." Reyes exchanged glances with Alara and Jarek, who had joined her in the command center. "War Master Helrax, we have encountered a refugee population in medical distress. Under interstellar convention, we are obligated to render aid." "Their distress is irrelevant," came the cold reply. "The Zelno are property of the Empire. You will withdraw within 6 hours, or face the consequences of your interference." The communication cut off abruptly. 6 hours, Sark noted grimly. "They're giving us time to retreat without losing face. Or they're giving their fleet time to achieve optimal attack positioning," Alara countered. Admiral Reyes turned to Jarek. "Captain Thrill, how many of your vessels have functional quantum capability now?" 3, with very limited range. Perhaps enough for a single jump to the next star system. Then we evacuate as many of your people as possible to those 3 ships. Reyes decided. Prioritize children and essential personnel. Meanwhile, we'll implement Plan Aurora. As the others moved to carry out her orders, Jarek remained. "Admiral, even if those 3 ships escape, the majority of my people will still be here. You cannot save them all." Reyes met his gaze steadily. "No, but we can try to save as many as possible. And sometimes, Captain Thrill, the attempt itself matters as much as the outcome." The 6-hour deadline passed with feverish activity. Aboard the Zelno vessels, thousands of children and critical personnel were transferred to the 3 ships with partial quantum drive functionality. On the human side, defensive positions were established, with the escort vessels forming a protective screen around Relay Station Alpha and the most vulnerable Zelno ships. "Corval fleet advancing," reported Marisol. 12 capital ships, 24 support vessels. They're on an attack vector. Admiral Reyes nodded grimly. "All vessels, battle stations, implement Plan Aurora." The UHS Vigilance, Vanguard, and Aegis, the 3 combat-capable escort vessels, moved into formation, their weapon systems coming online. Behind them, the small fleet of human medical and engineering vessels prepared to evacuate if necessary. Lieutenant Kai's voice came over the communication system. "Icarus Squadron ready to deploy, Admiral." "Launch on my mark," Reyes confirmed. "Remember your objectives. Disrupt, not destroy. We want to buy time, not start a war." As the first wave of Corval vessels came within firing range, Reyes gave the order. "All units, execute Plan Aurora. Icarus Squadron, launch." A swarm of small, agile craft erupted from the human escort vessels, racing toward the approaching Corval fleet. These were the Icarus Hawks, specialized disruption drones piloted remotely by Lieutenant Kai and his team. Each carried a payload of nanotech disruptors designed to temporarily interfere with Corval sensor and weapon systems. The Corval response was immediate and overwhelming. Energy weapons lashed out, vaporizing several drones instantly. But the remaining Hawks weaved through the barrage, releasing their payloads against the hulls of the nearest Corval vessels. "Nanotech deployment successful on targets Alpha and Bravo," Kai reported. "Sensor disruption confirmed." For a moment, it seemed the tactic might work. 2 Corval vessels fell out of formation, their targeting systems temporarily blinded. But the remaining ships adjusted quickly, compensating for their disabled companions. "New energy signatures detected," Marisol warned. "They're charging main weapons." The first devastating volley from the Corval fleet tore through space, aimed directly at the human escort vessels. The UHS Vigilance took a direct hit to its port side, atmosphere venting from multiple breaches. "Vigilance reports heavy damage," Sark called out. "Shield generators failing." On the tactical display, the situation was rapidly deteriorating. The Corval fleet outnumbered and outgunned the human defenders by a significant margin. Without direct intervention from the Federation's main battle fleet, which was weeks away at best, the outcome seemed inevitable. In the command center, Alara turned to Admiral Reyes. "We need to evacuate the station. Transfer all personnel to the remaining escort vessels." Reyes shook her head. "If we abandon our position, the Zelno are finished." "If we stay, we all die for nothing," Alara countered. Before Reyes could respond, Jarek stepped forward. "There is another option." All eyes turned to the Zelno captain. "The 3 vessels with partial quantum functionality," he said. "Instead of using them to flee, we could use them offensively." "Explain," Reyes demanded. "Zelno quantum drives generate a unique energy signature when activated. If we modified them to produce an unshielded quantum field and piloted them directly into the Corval formation." He didn't need to finish the thought. "A suicide mission," Alara said quietly. Yarek's expression was resolute. "I will lead it myself. My people are already doomed without your help. Let us at least contribute to the battle." Admiral Reyes considered the proposal. "How quickly could this be implemented?" "The drives are already functional," Jarek replied. "It would require minimal modification to remove the containment protocols." "No," came a new voice. First Officer Lasari had entered the command center. "Captain, this is madness. You would sacrifice our last hope of escape?" "There is no escape if the Corval break through," Jarek responded firmly. "Better to use our resources to protect those who tried to protect us." Before the argument could continue, an alarm sounded. "Multiple new contacts," Marisol announced. "Corval reinforcements have arrived. 24 additional vessels." The tactical display updated, showing the new arrivals, a second Corval battle group that had just dropped out of quantum space. With this force added to the first, the Corval fleet now represented overwhelming firepower. "It's over," Sark said quietly. Admiral Reyes straightened her uniform. "It's not over until we surrender or die, Captain. And I have no intention of surrendering." She turned to Jarek. "Implement your plan, Captain Thrill. Meanwhile, we'll execute a coordinated defense with our remaining forces." As Jarek hurried to prepare his desperate counterstrike, Alara caught Admiral Reyes's arm. "Admiral, we should at least evacuate the children from the Astrian. Give them a chance." Reyes nodded grimly. "I've already ordered all available medical shuttles to begin transfer operations. We'll save who we can, Commander." Across the battlefield, the situation continued to deteriorate. The UHS Vigilance was now critically damaged, its remaining crew evacuating to the other escort vessels. The UHS Vanguard and Aegis maintained their protective positions, but their shields were failing under the relentless Corval assault. In the midst of chaos, a communication came through from an unexpected source. "This is War Master Helrax to Human Federation vessels. Your resistance is noted but futile. I offer one final opportunity for you to withdraw and leave the Zelno to their rightful fate." Admiral Reyes took the communication herself. "War Master, the Zelno are under our protection. We will not abandon them." There was a pause before Helrax responded. "Why do you fight for those who are not your kind? What value do these weaklings hold that you would risk war with the Empire?" "Because all sentient life deserves the chance to exist," Reyes replied simply. "Because compassion isn't weakness. War Master, it's the highest form of strength." "A peculiar philosophy," Helrax noted. "One that will die with you." The communication ended, and the Corval assault intensified. On the bridge of his flagship, War Master Helrax observed the battle with growing curiosity. The humans were fighting with unexpected determination to protect aliens who were not their own kind. It was puzzling. Targeting solutions for their medical vessels, he asked his weapons officer. Ready, War Master. We can eliminate them with the next volley. Helrax hesitated, his gaze fixed on the tactical display showing human shuttles frantically evacuating Zelno children from the medical ship. What are they doing? He asked, more to himself than his crew. Evacuating the weak, War Master. His second-in-command replied dismissively. A waste of resources better spent on combat. Before Helrax could give the order to fire, the tactical display lit up with new alerts. Multiple energy spikes detected, his sensor officer announced. 3 Zelno vessels are powering up quantum drives, but the containment fields are offline. Helrax immediately understood the threat. Evasive maneuvers, all vessels, break formation. The order came too late. 3 Zelno ships, led by Captain Jarek's personal transport, accelerated toward the heart of the Corval formation. Their exposed quantum drives pulsed with increasingly unstable energy as the safety protocols were deliberately disabled. Target those vessels, Helrax commanded. Corval weapons fire lashed out, striking one of the incoming Zelno ships. But instead of destroying it, the impact only accelerated the quantum cascade effect. The damaged vessel exploded in a blinding flash of energy that rippled across space-time itself, temporarily disrupting the quantum fields of every vessel within range. In the command center of Relay Station Alpha, Admiral Reyes watched as the tactical display flickered and distorted. Quantum disturbance detected, Marisol reported. Corval fleet sensors are compromised. Now's our chance, Reyes declared. All vessels, implement Feldspar protocol. This was the core of Plan Aurora, a desperate gambit based on technology that the human engineers had developed by studying Zelno crystal systems. The remaining human vessels activated specially modified emitters that generated a focused beam of energy that resonated at the same frequency as the Zelno crystal technology. The effect was immediate and devastating. The Corval vessels, their shields temporarily disrupted by the quantum cascade, were suddenly vulnerable to an attack they had no defense against. The crystalline phased energy beams sliced through their armor, targeting propulsion and weapon systems with surgical precision. Simultaneously, a swarm of nanotech drones, the second wave of Icarus Hawks, swarmed into the gaps created by the beams, infiltrating the damaged Corval vessels and disrupting their internal systems. On the bridge of his flagship, War Master Helrax watched in disbelief as his fleet's advantage evaporated. Impossible! How are they doing this? The humans and Zelno. They've combined their technologies. His science officer realized. The attack pattern matches neither known human nor Zelno capabilities alone. Helrax's expression darkened. Redirect all power to forward shields. Prepare to ram their command station. His flagship lurched forward, engines straining as it accelerated toward Relay Station Alpha. Despite the damage it had sustained, the massive vessel still represented a catastrophic threat if it collided with the station. Corval flagship on collision course, Sark warned. Admiral Reyes's expression remained calm. UHS Aegis, intercept course. Deploy thermal cascade warhead. The UHS Aegis, the last fully operational human escort vessel, broke formation and accelerated directly toward the oncoming Corval flagship. It was a smaller vessel by far, but it carried the Federation's most advanced weapon, a thermal cascade warhead designed to trigger a chain reaction in fusion power systems. Aegis on intercept trajectory, Kai confirmed. Warhead armed. The Corval flagship fired its remaining weapons, striking the Aegis repeatedly as it approached. But the human vessel maintained its course, closing the distance with grim determination. Impact in 5 seconds, Marisol counted down. 4, 3, 2, 1. The Aegis collided with the Corval flagship's forward section, its thermal cascade warhead detonating on impact. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then a brilliant cascade of energy erupted from within the Corval vessel, as its own power systems were turned against it. The massive ship broke apart, secondary explosions rippling along its length as systems failed catastrophically. War Master Helrax, having abandoned the bridge moments before impact, watched from an escape craft as his flagship disintegrated. Around him, the remaining Corval vessels were in disarray, some retreating, others continuing to fight without coordinated leadership. "This should not be possible," he murmured. His communication officer turned to him. "War Master, we're receiving a signal from the humans. They're requesting cessation of hostilities and offering to render medical assistance to our damaged vessels." Helrax stared at the officer in disbelief. "They offer aid? After we tried to destroy them?" "Yes, War Master. They say it's standard humanitarian protocol." For the first time in his long military career, War Master Helrax found himself without words. The aftermath of the battle unfolded slowly. The remaining Corval vessels had withdrawn to the edge of the system, but had not departed entirely. Instead, a tense ceasefire had been established as both sides assessed their situations. On Relay Station Alpha, now serving as a makeshift neutral ground, Admiral Reyes waited with Commander Alara and Captain Jarek. They had received word that War Master Helrax himself had requested a meeting, an unprecedented move from a Corval military leader. He could still be planning treachery, Sark warned. "Possibly," Reyes acknowledged, "but this opportunity for dialogue is too valuable to ignore." When War Master Helrax arrived, he came with only 2 guards, another departure from Corval protocol, which typically dictated overwhelming force for any diplomatic encounter. The War Master was tall and imposing, his scaled skin a deep bronze, his eyes calculating as he surveyed the humans and Zelno. "You fight with unexpected effectiveness," he said without preamble. "And you fight for those not your own. Explain this." Admiral Reyes stepped forward. "The Zelno sought our help. Under our principles, we are obligated to provide it. Even at the cost of your own lives?" "Even then," Helrax turned to Jarek. "And you, Zelno, your people were willing to sacrifice your last means of escape to protect these humans. Why?" Yarek's expression was solemn. "Because they showed us compassion when we expected none. Because they risked everything to save our children when they could have simply continued their mission elsewhere." Compassion. Helrax repeated the word, as if testing an unfamiliar concept. "The Empire does not recognize this as a strategic value. Perhaps that is why the Empire finds itself perpetually at war," Alara suggested quietly. Helrax studied her for a long moment. "You damaged 27 of our vessels, killed hundreds of Corval warriors. Yet now, you treat our wounded alongside your own in your medical facilities. This contradiction interests me." "There's no contradiction," Reyes replied. "We fought because we had to. We heal because we can. Both actions stem from the same principle: respect for life." The War Master was silent for several moments, his expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke. "The Corval Empire has claimed the Zelno as subjects for generations. This is our right by conquest." "Rights by conquest became obsolete among humans centuries ago," Alara countered. "We found more productive relationships lead to greater advancement for all parties." "Prove this claim," Helrax challenged. Jarek stepped forward. "Observe what the humans have accomplished in mere days with our cooperation. They adapted their medicine to save our children. We shared our crystal technology to enhance their energy systems. Together, we created defenses that even the mighty Corval fleet could not overcome. And now," Admiral Reyes added, "we offer that same spirit of cooperation to the Corval. Not as conquerors or subjects, but as equals with different strengths." Helrax's expression remained stern, but something had changed in his eyes. "I will consider your words. In the meantime, I propose a temporary accord. The Corval fleet will withdraw to the outer system. The Zelno may continue their repairs under human protection. When your Federation reinforcements arrive, we will resume these discussions. It wasn't peace, not yet, but it was a beginning. 6 months later, the landscape of the Melanthia system had transformed. On Melanthia Prime, the second planet from the star that had once been considered uninhabitable, a new settlement had taken root. Crystal spires rose alongside metal structures, a hybrid architecture that reflected the unprecedented cooperation between Zelno and human engineers. The Zelno fleet, once drifting helplessly, now orbited the planet with fully restored quantum drives. Many had chosen to remain in the Melanthia system, establishing the first permanent Zelno settlement since the fall of their homeworld. Others had departed for Federation space, eager to learn and share knowledge with their new allies. Most surprisingly, a small Corval diplomatic outpost had been established on the system's outer moon. While far from full integration, it represented the first non-military Corval presence in a shared system, a tentative step toward a different kind of relationship. In the central plaza of Eurovia, the main Zelno settlement, Commander Alara Miles walked alongside Captain Jarek Thrill, now serving as the official Zelno ambassador to the Human Federation. "Your people have adapted remarkably well," Alara observed, watching as Zelno children played in fountains that combined flowing water with crystalline light patterns. "Survival has always been our strength," Jarek replied. "But thriving, that is something we are relearning, thanks to humanity's intervention." They paused at a memorial that had been erected in the center of the plaza, a sculpture formed from salvaged parts of both human and Zelno vessels lost during the confrontation with the Corval. Names were inscribed in both languages, honoring those who had not lived to see this new beginning. "Lieutenant Kai would have been proud," Alara said quietly, touching the name of the pilot who had sacrificed himself to protect the medical evacuation ships. "His name will be remembered in Zelno history," Jarek assured her, "as will all those who stood with us when we had nothing to offer in return." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of an unexpected figure. War Master Helrax, now bearing the title of Diplomatic Overseer, approached with a small entourage. "Ambassador Thrill, Commander Miles," he greeted them formally. "I bring news from the Imperial Council." Months of tense negotiations had followed the battle, with the Federation sending diplomatic teams to engage directly with the Corval leadership. Progress had been slow and difficult, with many in the Empire resistant to any change in their expansionist policies. "The Council has ratified the Melanthia Accord," Helrax announced. "The Empire officially recognizes the sovereignty of the Zelno people and their right to establish settlements under their own governance." Jarek's crystalline eyes widened. "This is unexpected." "Many things have been unexpected since our encounter," Helrax acknowledged. "The Council was particularly impressed by the advances in crystal fusion technology that your combined scientists have developed. They recognize that conquest would have destroyed the very innovation that cooperation has fostered." "Pragmatism rather than principle," Alara noted, "but progress nonetheless." "Principles evolve, Commander," Helrax replied, "even among the Corval." As the former War Master departed to inspect the diplomatic facilities, Jarek turned to Alara. "Do you trust this change of heart?" "Trust is built over time," she replied. "But I believe what we've started here is genuine. The Combined Research Institute has already made breakthroughs that none of our species could have achieved alone. That creates a powerful incentive for continued cooperation." In the distance, the Tri-Species Biomedical Institute gleamed in the afternoon sun. Within its walls, scientists from all three civilizations worked together on challenges ranging from xenobiology to quantum physics. Leading the institute was Dr. Liang Wei, alongside First Officer Lissari, their initial wariness having evolved into profound mutual respect. "What happens now?" Jarek asked, his gaze taking in the thriving settlement that had seemed impossible just months before. "Now we build," Alara answered simply. We learn from each other. We explore together rather than conquer separately. And perhaps, in time, we create something greater than any of us imagined possible. Above them, the first joint expedition vessel, crewed by humans, Zelno, and even a few Corval scientists, prepared to depart for uncharted regions of space. Its name, displayed in all three languages across its hull, captured the spirit of this unprecedented alliance: resonant harmony. As the sun set over Melanthia Prime, casting the crystal spires of Eurovia in golden light, children of three species played together in the central plaza, their laughter a counterpoint to the memory of suffering that had brought them together. They were too young to understand the historical significance of their games, too innocent to know how close their futures had come to ending before they began. But the adults watching them understood. In the vastness of space, compassion had proven to be not a weakness, but the most powerful force of all, capable of transforming enemies into allies and despair into hope. When an alien fleet had been stranded and humanity arrived to help, they had not merely saved lives, they had changed the course of three civilizations. As Jarek had once explained to Alara, different crystals vibrating in harmony create something stronger than any could achieve alone. Now, three species who might never have met except through conflict had found their own resonant harmony, and the universe would never be quite the same again. In the growing twilight, Alara looked up at the stars, becoming visible in Melanthia's sky. Somewhere out there, other civilizations waited to be discovered. Other conflicts waited to be resolved. The path forward would not always be clear or easy, but the principles that had guided them through this crisis would light the way. Respect for all sentient life, courage in the face of overwhelming odds, and the simple truth that, sometimes, helping others is its own reward. When we set out to survey this system, she said quietly to Jarek, I never imagined we would find ourselves building a new future, instead of just mapping resources. The greatest discoveries, Jarek replied, his crystalline eyes reflecting the first stars of evening, are often the ones we never set out to find. Around them, the lights of Eurovia came on, one by one, a constellation of hope built by hands working together across the divisions of species and history. The impossible had been achieved not through superior firepower or domination, but through the simple, radical act of extending help to strangers in need. And in the infinite darkness between stars, that light would continue to shine, a beacon calling others to follow the same path toward a future where differences were not merely tolerated, but celebrated as essential threads in the tapestry of a larger, more vibrant universe.